RTL Stories, the podcast with Lisa Berg from RTL Group.
At a certain point, the companies had to be split up, Smartclip and SpotX, and at the same time I was getting a divorce. So I think the most funny joke we made is that the only stable thing in my life is my car, because I had to find a new house, I had to start a new life, and I had to potentially find a new job.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to RTL Stories, the podcast. I'm Lisa Berg, based here in Luxembourg, and today we are exploring the wonderful life, the decade that Mirjam Naves, Vice President of Projects and Processes at Smartclip, has spent doing this work and how she got there. So, Mirjam, it's so lovely to have you on this call.
Nice to meet you. Nice to talk to you today.
And now we're going to start with the world of ad tech and what that actually means, because this is the world you found yourself in. So for those of us who don't know, what is ad tech?
Ad tech is basically the advertising technology. That's what the ad tech stands for. And it connects the content of the broadcasters to the advertisements of the advertiser, and through technical communication, the ad technology decides which ad to deliver at which time, against which rules and against which price. Sounds very easy, but it's actually quite encompassing a lot of different technologies that have to work together to make it as optimal for the broadcaster as possible.
And you have spent decades doing this work in different companies and companies that have merged and demerged, etc. And so now you have ended up at Smartclip. So tell us how you came to be at Smartclip.
It's a long story. I started working in ad technology the first time with the publishers. So it's kind of similar to a broadcaster, but then the content's different. Newspaper would be a publisher as well. And I started there in sales, which was not really my thing. I was managing third parties that were helping us sell the inventory of the websites in different countries. And when I was responsible for doing that for all the video advertisements in front of video content, I learned that the technology we had wasn't really working, which was making our performance of the ads go down, making that we had difficulty selling. So we needed to change what we were doing, and I was kind of figuring out what was wrong, kind of looking already, and presented a plan to the technical director of the company at the time, saying, hey, I think we need to change this. He said, okay, perfectly fine. Here you have a group of developers. Go work with the developers and fix it, which was a lot of fun. And that made me change my role into an advertiser product manager. So building and managing the different techniques that we use. So actually becoming responsible for selecting which ad technology we would be using. And then in 2015, I switched seats and moved into an ad technology company that formerly I was working with. And that's where I started to get more technical. So in the Netherlands, we had a close-knit network of publishers that were talking together and, hey, I use this technology. What's the benefit? What's the pros and what's the cons? And then through that network of publishers I was working with, I was also in contact with RTL Netherlands. And RTL Netherlands was closely involved in the American company SpotX starting their business venture in the Netherlands. So they called me and said, like, hey, do you want to be the technical consultant within the Dutch entity and consult broadcasters and publishers who want to use our platform?
So you've really had this massive change. I mean, you've clearly got a technical mind, but actually you studied TV, you studied movie, digital media, and I know your father was involved and you stayed up all night with him, fixing things and just, putting wires together. So it wasn't a world that you were fazed by.
No, not at all. My dad has his own hardware company, so he would implement servers into other companies and small businesses, and we usually had to do that at night because you don't want to interrupt business. So that would mean that sometimes as a 12-year-old I would join him in the middle of the night putting down all the groundwork. And during my studies I was part of the IT study group because the people fit my personality better. And my teacher, she figured it out, and she was like, we had to write this paper on website development and more focused on design. And she basically said, you're not writing the paper, you're building the website using everything you learned.
And so I can see that you're a systems thinker. You're putting everything in together throughout the whole course of your life, and that's fed you so well. Added to that, with the various companies and the transitions of the various companies, you've had to learn cultural differences. So talk to us about that, because I know you've worked with the US market, you obviously work with the Netherlands, you work across Europe. Talk to us about what you've learned there, which is different from the technical knowledge.
So with the publishing company, I worked basically everywhere from Sweden to France to Poland, and I'm Dutch. And I come from a very small flower sales town, which means that I'm Dutch direct, but with an extra level of direct.
Oh, I didn't realize the flower towns were direct.
Oh yes, they're really blunt, and it helped me in a lot of cases as well, working internationally, but sometimes it's also challenging. I don't sugarcoat things, and I can be very, intimidating.
Yes.
For other people.
That could be one word.
Yeah. But I also noticed that it helps me sometimes, especially when it comes to consulting. Honesty gets you further. So if something doesn't work technically, or we have to change something, I basically say, technically, this is not going to work, or technically, this is not the best solution for you. And I would bluntly just say that.
And you have actually found yourself in a number of different leadership roles. And in 2015, which you were mentioning, it came the transition to SpotX. And that wasn't such an easy start.
No, no, not at all. When I started the transition of, they took over an existing company, and the existing company had to move their customers into the new technology, and somebody was already working on it. So I came in and I had to find my way. And soon we figured out we had to use a piece of technology from the US, and just wasn't working. And I said, it's not working. There's something wrong with the service. It's not working. No, and it's working, and it's like this. You have to check it out much further. And at a certain point, they flew over this consultant from the US to check it out. And then his conclusion was, yeah, she's right. The servers aren't working. So it was very difficult in the beginning to bridge the gap of culture with the US, but also bridging the gap of time zone differences. And so it involved a lot of
trust,
late nights.
Trust also.
Trust, definitely. Yeah.
But in fact, when you came upon this problem, just to add, this isn't like a year in, this is just weeks in.
Yeah. 1-2 weeks, yes.
So, I mean, that's why they probably flew somebody over, because they hadn't figured out that actually, oh yes, you really do know your stuff. And when you say something isn't working, actually she's right.
So it was perfectly understandable that they were like, for them, it was their first time really doing business in Europe. So they haven't really tested out those servers that they were using. So it kind of made sense. Everything made sense. And I don't have any remorse, but it was like really a little bit of a rough start. I'm a control freak. So when I start, I'd like to know everything. I want to be on top of everything. And when you start new, you just start from the bottom. Well, and you don't know nothing.
I can imagine that attitude is extremely useful, and has certainly got you where you are. But then, after 2015, in 2018, there was another merger process. SpotX and Smartclip began. And that was another, any kind of merger or demerger will always be a challenging time. But you have mentioned to me that your manager at SpotX taught you a lot. He really took you under his wing, and he really helped you develop as a manager.
Yeah, so I had a very good manager in the US, and we had a very good modus operandi with regards to the time zone differences. And he taught me a lot of things, be it both technical, but also be it about how to cope with having a lot of operational work, but also managing your team. And he was kind of a mentor in this case, which made it easier at the time for us together, as he was very disciplined and I'm very structured, to make sure that we could bring both companies together when it came to technical support and technical consulting, even though the differences were really, really big on the level of support and the level of depth. Yeah, but he was the best manager I had. Yeah.
You had a great rapport with him, and you were going through personal tough times as well. So he managed to carry that for you a little bit, at least by being a mentor. So what was his advice on mentoring a team?
Make time for it. So you tend to, if you're used to working very operationally, managing becomes like this in between little thing, and it doesn't work. You really have to spend your time nicely and take the time to talk to the team, find out what their interest is, find out what makes them tick, what's important to them, and teach them what you know in a fun way.
And if you
make jokes,
if you are a control freak, to use your own words, how do you let go to allow other people who won't be probably as good as you at certain things? How do you give them the baton to carry that forward?
Well, if you have the trick, tell me, because it's still one of the most difficult things to do. Delegation is super hard, and it takes also finding the right person in your team to build that trust. And because my expectations can be yay high. So for me, what really worked is making it very concrete and then letting it go. It's like really say, okay, you're responsible for this, you're responsible for that. So the clearer the responsibilities are, the easier it is for myself to say, should I be doing this? No. Okay. Let my team members take care of it. And always, go ahead.
No, I was just going to add on to that. Again, your wonderful manager at SpotX, I particularly like his advice to you on the to-do list.
Yes. And this is what I would recommend to everybody. The edtech market is a fast, high pressure, high paced market. And it can be quite overwhelming. Needless to say, mental health is very important. One tiny little trick he taught me, which I still use every day, but it's so important for your mental mindset, is don't make a to-do list which has 20 things on it. Because if you don't finish it that day, you'll end up with a mental disappointment of all the things you didn't finish. Only put one, your uttermost important thing on your to-do list, and always finish that. If you just put one on it, your brain will say, at least I accomplished this. This was the only thing that mattered today. And it makes you leave work feeling accomplished and feeling that you've did something, which is very, very important for your brain, because it needs the happy endorphins, basically.
Let's bring you to one particular day, which was an extremely tough day, GDPR Day.
At SpotX, I was given a trust to run the project on implementing GDPR.
I wonder why they gave it to you. They knew you could do it. I think I do know why.
So it was working a lot with the product managers to make sure that product was ready, working with the management to explain that nobody in the technology market was able to complete the pipelines before GDPR hit. So we knew we would lose millions in Europe. So I also had to make very clear, say like, be aware, I expect a revenue impact of XYZ. And
it wasn't just you, of course. This was across the board for pretty much everybody in that space.
Yeah, so this was not SpotX related. It was everybody had the same problem, and we had to make some tough decisions because of market differences. We had to calculate which office would be. How did we get to an overall least amount of hit? But that could mean that one office would hit very hard and the other office was hit very little. So I knew Italy would be hit very hard, for example, but Germany a little bit less. So it was also tough decisions, explaining that to the managing directors that, hey, I expect you to do worse. I expect you to do a little bit better. when GDPR hit, I actually had a Bertelsmann learning day in Berlin. And I wasn't able to put my heart into it because my phone rang off the hook the entire day with people panicking across Europe because they were losing revenue. And the day before that, at midnight, I wrote down like a 15-page FAQ, which I sent out to all the managing directors and operational people the day before, saying, please, I'm in this workshop, bear with me, but if you have a question, it's all in a document. Look it up. I know it's stressful. It will be fine. We're all working on it. This is where we're starting at. So I spent my day getting yelled at and people panicking. So at 5:00, I came back into my hotel room completely exhausted.
5 a.m.
5 in the afternoon, yeah.
PM. I'm only asking because it could be either with you.
It could be. I called my manager. I said, I think we also had one bug that we needed to work on, and I called in and I explained him how my day was. And 5 afternoon for him was like 8 in the morning. And he said, okay, you're done for today. I have your document. Everything is in there. Okay, everybody now goes through me. You relax, go out to dinner. You're going to be fine. And I'll take it over and you manage perfectly. So he was really there for me to say, okay, hey, you did it. It's done. You didn't do anything wrong, even though you felt like it, because...
Well, that's true joint leadership. I mean, I don't think anybody could have handled that day better than you did. And this just goes to show the way in which you flow with the very big decisions and the big changes in your life. So for those of us who struggle with having to make big choices, and you've also made big choices as to where to work. You've had choices to stay in Europe. You could have gone to the US. How do you make those big choices in your life?
I would say rationally, and I'm not a big risk taker. And
I think you might be a risk taker, but you plan it out.
Yeah, it has to be balanced. So when a lot is moving in your private life, then I tend to make less major decisions, changing a job or changing a role in your business life. But when you're comfortable in your private life, then you always have to look for the balance, because if you're moving too much, there's not a lot to hold on to anymore. And that's what we all need. You need to be able to come home and just relax. And if home's unstable, then you need to make your work stable.
And what if both are? I mean, I know that there's been periods in your life. There's periods in most people's lives. I mean, I can speak personally as well that, sometimes these things are in flux at the same time. So how do you ride that wave?
I think you're referring to, at a certain point, the companies had to be split up, Smartclip and SmartX, and I could only work for Smartclip. And at the same time, I was getting a divorce. So I think the most funny joke we made is that the only stable thing in my life is my car, because I had to find a new house. I had to start a new life, and I had to potentially find a new job. Which basically meant that all the parts that balance you out were up in the air. So I really thought about, where can I go? What do I want? And what do I need? And that's also very important. What do you need work-wise? So I had a call with our current CEO, Thomas, and I said, I know you offered me this support role, but that's too easy for me. I can do it. It wouldn't be very difficult. I would manage it with stability, but it wouldn't challenge me at all.
So at the point where everything is in flux in your life, you're asking for a harder job.
I asked for a harder job, yeah, because it also, you get the fun out of the, at least that's where I get my energy. And I told him that at the point when they decided to split, Smartclip was given, or it has the ambition to become the number one ad serving technology for European broadcasters. And I told him, if you want to do this, you need to make sure that the organization is ready for this, and that the knowledge is shared amongst the people in the company in a way that you're ready to handle this ambition. And right now you're not. because I see this, I see that. And I started to explain him all the things I was seeing, where from my former experience with SpotX, I was like, we need more.
Let me guess.
Yeah.
He looked at you and he said, okay, here you go. There are the keys, go and do it.
He was like, how do you suggest we fix it? And I made some suggestions. And I also told him, like, what I find very important is if we do this, if you say, okay, you can do this, I need you to trust me. Let me do my thing independently and trust me that this will be fine. And he said, okay.
Well, I'm not surprised. I mean, you're clearly so established in seeing a vision and carrying it through. And just thinking about the other part of the balance of your life, you said right at the top that you put high expectations on yourself and that can spill over to others. And that's hard on your own psyche. How do you avoid a burnout?
I have one little rule of thumb, and that is if I start not being able to properly sleep, that's an alarm bell. But I had a long mental health trajectory about a half year to a year ago, where I really took care of how is everything working in my brain. At a certain point, sometimes you build up so many emotions that if something small happens, your brain starts to bring in the large emotions. And that's where everything starts to get more heavier. And that's where you risk where everything's being heavy. And then at a certain point, you get stuck. So I decided to work together with a mental health psychologist to basically refile my emotions and to be able to, you need to take care of it. It's just like you go to the dentist every half a year. When you don't feel well, you go to the doctor. Why not do exactly the same for your brain? It is equally as important. So whenever I feel like I'm getting stuck, I take a step back. But I also know that I have a psychologist to reach out to say, hey, I'm stuck. Can you help me out?
That's wonderful. And thank you for being honest about that. I think we need leadership people to talk about it so that it feels, like you say, going to the dentist. It's just a normal thing to do. I also love this phrase from a coach you had at Spill Games who taught you that if you work a lot with your brain, you need to relax with your hands.
Yeah. We had a leadership traineeship, and this was again like that to-do list. It's just a small little thing, but it makes a world of difference. I'm a big fan of building Lego, as a lot of my coworkers know, because my presentations are usually filled with Lego bricks. So when you work a long day with your brain, I tend to sit down and build Lego bricks. And it is so relaxing because you step out of your brain and you move into your motor skills. And that relaxes your brain. It works very nicely. If you do a lot with your brain, go outside, go into nature and do something with your hands. Do a puzzle. It really, really helps.
And I know you do voluntary work as well with animals, which is wonderful too.
Yeah, no, every weekend I drive a shift on the animal ambulance, which is a little bit of an adrenaline junkie thing as well sometimes, because sometimes you get those emergencies. But it's also working with a different side of your brain and working with animals, which is, again, also working with your hands. Yeah.
And then to finally wrap up the conversation, I just wanted to touch on it. I don't think it's been anything that you've ever had to face in your journey, the gender question when it comes to working in a technical field. But you also have a chief product officer called Gloria who mentioned to you once this lovely phrase that I've underlined. She doesn't believe in the glass ceiling, because if you believe in it, it's there.
Your gender doesn't define your person. Your skills do. Your ambition, your passion define you. So as soon as you feel like you're the woman in tech, you start creating that bubble for yourself. While if you believe in a person that has skills and that has passion about things, and that is equally as value regardless of gender, then the impression that you make or how you come across changes.
Well, I would agree. And my final question to you, I have two things on my list now. If anybody would like to buy you a gift, Mirjam, we've got Lego. I'm sure you've got quite the collection of Lego. But the second thing
Pretty
is,
much.
tell us about the other collection you have going on.
I actually have a close connection to Germany because my parents travel there very often. So I'm there often as well. And my mom and I started to build this collection of passive-aggressive mugs. So the current mug I'm drinking off says, Wer hat dich denn gefragt? Which means that whoever asked you anything. So when I'm in a call with my internal colleagues, sometimes when I will be like, yeah, no, of course, what are you talking about? And we would have a conversation and it would show my passive-aggressive German mugs. And I have quite a collection now.
And I can imagine you've also got an Excel file sheet on how long it takes them to actually notice your cup is there and they've read it and you can see the dawning realization on their face.
They usually have to laugh about it. Yeah.
Of course. Yeah. Well, Mirjam, thank you so much for taking the time to talk to us about your journey and your evolution through into the tech world and leadership as well, and how you've managed to juggle so much through different continents. It's been a real joy to speak with you. And of course, if you're part of RTL, we always want to hear from you, your stories. We'd love you to get in touch through the intranet and the various media channels. Of course, you can just search for RTL Group on LinkedIn or Instagram or YouTube. We are not hard to find. Please get in touch and tell us what you think about Mirjam's story. So Mirjam, thank you so much for your time.
No worries, and thank you, and have a lovely day.